Chapter 471, An invisible blade is the most fatal. The roaring and cheering were like the gushing tides that instantly engulfed Feng Lin. The instant Feng Lin entered, countless pairs of eyes turned over and focused on him. Expressions of curiosity, excitement, and anticipation could be seen on their faces. A human figure appeared in the air. He shouted out loud, "The 7,000th level of the heaven-reaching pagoda finally welcomes a new challenger after 5 days. Next, let us use our warmest applause to welcome the cultivator from the Huaxia Star Republic, Feng Lin." As the host's voice rang out, the light here all focused onto Feng Lin, revealing his figure to everyone. Who is he? Why have I never seen him before in the lower levels? A newbie actually came directly to the 7,000th level? Seems like this man isn't simple at all. He definitely has a cultivation base at the adept level. Those who could enter the heaven-reaching pagoda all naturally wouldn't have bad judgment. Feng Lin's sudden appearance caused them to be filled with guesses. The pagoda lord of the 7,000th level is the extremely famous Star Tiger Tugor. "We will now welcome him onto the battlefield," called the host loudly. A bright light flashed, shifting the focus to the center of the battlefield. Over there, a giant bloke of about 2 meters tall stood there. His expression was as malevolent as a ferocious tiger. That man stood there and roared, causing waves of violence to gush forth from him. "Brat, I don't know your origins, but today is your unlucky day because you came to my level. You best lie down obediently and become a part of my battle achievements," he laughed evilly. However, Feng Lin merely glanced at him, not bothered at all. He was quietly waiting for the fight to start. The giant man was stunned. A moment later, his expression turned even more sinister as he grew increasingly angry. "Let the fight begin." As the host called out, Star Tiger's aura immediately gushed over, his eyes brimmed with killing intent. His hands were like claws, resembling how tigers wanted to shred their prey. Feng Lin didn't move at all. He merely opened his eyes wider like he just woke up from a dream and cast a glance over. That Star Tiger Tugor was instantly frozen. His body turned stiff and immobile, he couldn't move from his spot. A glance, it took just a single glance. And the so-called pagoda lord lost all strength to resist. At the start, no one noticed. But after 3 minutes passed, Star Tiger Tugor was still immobile. This immediately caused everyone to feel that something was wrong. What happened? Why isn't the pagoda lord moving? Is he cursed? What nonsense. His cultivation is at the adept level, who can cast a curse on him? Those people continued to discuss, feeling puzzled. This bizarre scene surpassed their imaginations. Feng Lin's eyes shifted away and that Star Tiger Tugor could finally move again. However, he instantly called out, "I admit defeat." An uproar was instantly created. What? But they haven't fought yet. False match. This must be the pagoda lord throwing the match. This Star Tiger is ultimately someone at the adept realm. How could he concede even without fighting? Roars of outrage continued to ring out, spreading across the surroundings and causing a commotion. But no matter how loud the spectators roared, Feng Lin had a calm look on his face. He couldn't be bothered to care. He wasn't a monkey that had to perform circus tricks for these people to see. "I can enter the next level, right?" He turned and spoke to the host. That host was still in a daze. Clearly, he hadn't regained his senses yet. After hearing Feng Lin's question, he was startled and replied, "Wait a moment. The pagoda lord hasn't lost any of his combat strength. I have to check this personally." His gaze was filled with a judgmental look as he glanced at Feng Lin. Clearly, he suspected that this newbie might have an under-table agreement with the Star Tiger Tugor. One must note that the Star Tiger Tugor had always been known for his savageness, so who could control him silently? Was that even possible? A false match. Star Tiger Tugor must be throwing it on purpose. Upon seeing the doubtful look on the face of the host, Feng Lin frowned. He loathed wasting time. He calmly spoke, "No need, there's no need for so much trouble." His gaze swept over once more. The star tiger Tagore instantly felt his body trembling from the pressure. His hands formed the shape of claws and involuntarily lifted up. "Ah!" he roared in rage. His left hand directly sliced the wrist of his right hand, which caused him to lose a large portion of his combat strength instantly. See. When everyone saw this, they involuntarily sucked in a cold breath. This looked extremely painful. Even the host was dazed. "This? You still didn't discover this? His consciousness has been under my control from the start." Feng Lin calmly spoke, yet the calmness in his tone was so cold that it sent shivers down the spines of everyone. The host couldn't help but tremble when he stared at the mutilated right hand of Star Tiger Tagore. His heart was suddenly filled with coldness as he froze on the spot. "Can I pass this level now?" Feng Lin calmly asked. "If you don't agree, don't tell me you want the Star Tiger Tagore's entire arm to be broken off." Although his voice was calm, a coldness could clearly be heard within. You can enter the next level immediately." He nodded frantically, afraid that if he continued delaying, Feng Lin might truly cripple a cultivator at the adept realm just like that. How could someone like him be a newbie? He was more like a world-shaking tyrant instead. What? He really passed the check? The consciousness of Star Tiger Tagore seemed to be under his control. The invisible blade is always the most fatal. Could it be this newbie has awakened a mental or spirit-type mythological gene? Moreover, he actually controlled a cultivator at the adept realm. This is simply too terrifying. Those spectators with a discerning eye soon managed to piece the information together and came to a conclusion. Their eyes were now filled with trepidation when they stared at Feng Lin. The unknown was the most terrifying. Spirit force was different from direct brute strength. It could silently control the mental states of others, and those being controlled couldn't even decide their life and death. No one wished to meet such a terrifying opponent. Upon seeing the fear in everyone's eyes, Feng Lin smiled. He entered the elevator and ascended to a higher level. "We welcome Challenger Feng Lin, who came from the 7,000th level." Earlier, he used a mental/spirit technique to bewilder the heart of the Pagoda Lord. Now, he is here to challenge the Pagoda Lord of the 7,001st level, Wild Blade Qinquang. As the fight started, a man with a gigantic blade on his back walked over. "I don't care what bizarre methods you used. Next, you will." Even before he could complete his sentence, Feng Lin cast a glance at him and that man instantly froze. It felt like time had stopped once again. "You talk too much." Staring at the frozen expression of that man, it seemed somewhat comical. Feng Lin's eyes were filled with coldness as he swept out with his spirit force. The Pagoda Lord with the title A Wild Blade silently fell onto the ground at the next moment. Spirit force like an invisible blade, nothing was more fatal than this. After that, Feng Lin continued ascending upwards. He was walking on a perfect mythological path, and his spirit force was incomparably powerful. He was basically invincible among his peers. Any cultivators at the adept realm wouldn't be able to contend against him. They had no way to resist his methods. Feng Lin continued ascending, his spirit force swept forth with impunity and invincibility. It felt as easy as a stroll in the park as he continued climbing upwards. In the end, he broke through 300 levels in a single day. Chapter 472, Shooting Straight Up 1,000 Levels. Victor of the 7,320 level is Feng Lin. The Pagoda Lord of this level, Alloy Warrior Lane, has failed to guard the level. As the host called out, the dust had settled, victory and defeat had been determined. An uproar instantly rang out. He won again. He truly won. This spirit slayer Feng Lin has already broken past 300 levels. That's right. The invisible blade is truly the most fatal. No one can block the invisible blade formed from his spirit force. Even before the battle started, it had already ended. Feng Lin slowly walked over. A figure clad in alloy equipment fell down, smashing heavily onto the ground, completely losing all strength to resist. Everything ended in an instant. The spectators watching were all in an uproar, cheering for Lin Feng. Feng Lin intentionally used a false name to conceal himself. If, at the start, one could still say that it was a fluke. But now after 300 rounds, all the pagoda lords would be in a daze upon meeting Feng Lin and completely lose their combat strength. After watching so many rounds, even those who were slightly slower could tell that something was wrong. And after the host explained, they finally knew that this extremely mysterious Lin Feng was using a mental/spirit type genetic power in the legends. He could control the mental states of others and could defeat and kill people formlessly. As long as one's strength was weaker than him, they would be instantly controlled. Even life and death wouldn't be in their hands. Insta-kill. Completely crushed in an instant. This was clearly him having the strength to tyrannically crush those cultivators who were weaker than him. When Feng Lin first appeared, because he defeated his opponents too quickly, many suspected him of fixing his matches. But now he broke through 300 levels in one shot. The insta-kills caused everyone to be stunned. But no one could cast any more doubt after seeing it for so many times. The gambling faction in the heaven-reaching pagoda kept adjusting Feng Lin's win rate. It was over 99%. Level 7489. Challenger, Spirit Slayer Lin Feng vs Pagoda Lord, Blood Devil Fick, the host called out. A new fight had started. The commotion grew in intensity the moment the host announced it. It's Blood Devil Fick. There's going to be a good show to watch. He has awakened the legendary vampire gene and is walking on the vampire mythological path. He can be considered a cold-blooded life form, thus, it wouldn't be so easy if Lin Feng wanted to control him mentally. Everyone couldn't help but hold their breaths as they focused on the two people on the battlefield. Could the cold-blooded vampire withstand the invisible spirit blade? For this Lin Feng, other than his mental control, how was his true strength like? After watching for so many rounds, Feng Lin's strength was still a mystery to them. Could this Blood Devil Fick force out his true strength? Everyone was filled with anticipation. Without realizing it, Feng Lin, who was unknown to everyone before this, now became an extremely popular candidate in the heaven-reaching pagoda. After all, a legend that broke through 300 levels in a single shot had never appeared before. And from the looks of things, this legendary feat seemed like it would continue. As the host called out, the light on the battlefield dimmed, turning to darkness. Judge. Hoarse-sounding laughter tinged with coldness rang out from an unknown location. It was filled with icy intent. So you are the so-called Spirit Slayer? How laughable. Although there are not many adepts in the universe, you actually dare to use such a name. You must be truly courting death. You speak too much crap. Upon facing the mocking of this man, Feng Lin calmly glanced over, his eyes shining with silver light. A bizarre figure hanging upside down from the roof appeared in his vision. Two wings were wrapped around this man, and he resembled a human-shaped gigantic bat. His eyes narrowed as a formless spirit force gushed out, wanting to control his opponent's mind. At the next instant, his spirit force rammed into a world of ice, which contained no compassion at all. It was like the mind of a monster, only filled with bloodthirst and cruelty. Judge. Is this your spirit control? Sadly, it's useless toward me. Next, I shall drain you dry of blood and transform you into my blood slave. Blood Devil Fick laughed with malice. His black wings opened and he swooped down like a huge bat. His red eyes were filled with cruelty and malevolence as he rushed at Feng Lin directly. A black shadow flashed past. Feng Lin could clearly see the pale face and the cold red eyes of his opponent. Who says that I'm only proficient in spirit control? He didn't panic at all. In fact, he was laughing softly. What? Blood Devil Fick suddenly felt a strong sense of unease when he saw Feng Lin being as calm as before. Just when he was preparing to retreat, Feng Lin suddenly stretched out a palm and locked down the surroundings of this bat monster. A burst of formless energy transformed into true pressure, boring down on the giant bat from all directions. Blood Devil Fick's eyes protruded out. He instantly felt like he was being crushed by a grindstone, and his entire person was about to be squashed flat from the pressure. Monkey King Domain. Feng Lin's lips curled up as his spirit force enveloped the surrounding space. The entire area here completely transformed into his domain. No one could escape from it. The gigantic bat monster completely became a toy in his palm. He could crush at any time. Damnable. Wild Blood Bat Tide. Blood Devil Fick was being suppressed. He felt like he was a bug that was caught in a spider web. He instantly unleashed forth his ultimate attack. A blood-red light erupted forth from him as countless tiny bats manifested. They transformed into a tide that would ferociously engulf all enemies around and drain them dry of their blood. Erupt. When Feng Lin saw this, he merely smiled. The Monkey King domain suddenly compressed, and everything inside including the space was compacted into a ball. The tiny bats formed from the blood-red light instantly exploded into a shower of blood. This caused a fishy smell to permeate the air as the droplets of blood fell everywhere. Pack. A piece of human-shaped rotten flesh fell from the sky. With regard to this monster who feasted on human blood, Feng Lin wouldn't show mercy like he did before. He attacked ruthlessly, instantly sending his opponent to death's door with a single strike. His opponent completely lost his combat strength, and even his cultivation was crippled. Victor, Feng Lin. Upon seeing the situation, the host announced with a quavering voice. Spirit control and physical dominance. The Spirit Slayer truly lives up to his name. If no one can block his formless spirit force, there wouldn't be anyone who can be the opponent of this Lin Feng. Many spectators began to comment with advice in hindsight. Feng Lin wouldn't care about what these people were saying or about the strange titles they might give him. His path of ascension up the pagoda had already begun, and he wouldn't stop for anything. I concede. I also admit defeat. You've won. One couldn't help but say that the intimidation effect was really explosive when Feng Lin suddenly acted so ruthlessly. The sorry sight of Blood Devil Fick was before the eyes of everyone. Next, the other pagoda lords were all frightened that they might become the next Fick. None of them felt any confidence in dealing with his spirit force attacks and chose to instantly concede. They completely ignored their pride and prestige. For things like that, they knew very well what was more important. Anyone with brains would understand that upon having their cultivation base crippled, everything they possessed would be stripped from them. Level 7500, 7550, 7600. Feng Lin continued climbing. None of the pagoda lords he met could win against him when he used his spirit force to dominate them. They either lost because their mental states were controlled or they took the initiative to concede. Who could block this Lin Feng? This was the most crucial question in the hearts of everyone. Feng Lin continued climbing, exuding an invincible momentum. It continued until someone from the interior department of the heaven-reaching pagoda reached out to him. Esteemed Adept Lin Feng, we apologize. Because we had grossly underestimated your combat strength, we caused you to waste time fighting these pagoda lords of the lower levels. After the latest analysis by the pagoda's AI and the consensus of the heaven-reaching pagoda's internal affairs department, we will instantly send you up by another 1,000 levels, directly to level 700. Chapter 473, First True Opponent. Directly ascending 1,000 levels. Upon hearing this, even Feng Lin was shocked. There was actually something like ascending 1,000 levels straight. But when he saw the serious look on that person's face, it felt like this person wasn't joking. That's right. The person in silver attire from the Internal Affairs Department spoke seriously, not joking at all. He gave a deep bow and apologized, "Adept Phone Lin, it's our mistake. Due to us severely underestimating your strength, we caused you to waste your precious time. This is our mistake. Hence, after further analysis, we decided to send you up by 1,000 levels in one shot." The words of this person were beautiful. But Phone Lin's senses were extremely sharp, and he could sense unease and trepidation from the tone of this man. A smile then appeared on Phone Lin's face. "Wanting me to head up so quickly? Are they afraid of me destroying these pagoda lords?" He saw through what was happening, but he didn't state it explicitly as well. Phone Lin didn't want things to be too troublesome as well. Fighting on these levels posed no challenge to him at all. It would just be a waste of his spirit force. One must note that the reason why he came to the heaven-reaching tower was to seek out strong opponents to temper himself, so he could achieve a breakthrough in his cultivation more quickly. His time was limited and he couldn't afford to delay his advance any longer. In any case, what was happening now was beneficial to him and it suited his intentions as well. "Fine. Who?" Upon seeing Phone Lin agree, that person let out a breath that he was holding. He was deeply afraid that Phone Lin wouldn't agree. Spirit force was simply too tyrannical and bizarre. If they allowed Phone Lin to continue breaking through each level, the Tao heart of those pagoda lords might be severely damaged. Hence, the sending of this man to the higher levels was something that couldn't be delayed. It was better to allow Phone Lin to clash with those monsters on the higher levels, rather than allowing him to abuse the cultivators on these levels. Luckily, everything could be resolved perfectly. Phone Lin's lips curled up into a smile. Under his sharp spirit senses, the thoughts in this man's heart were truly laughable. Let's hope that the pagoda lord on the 8,700th level wouldn't disappoint him. Since the Internal Affairs Department of the Heaven-reaching Pagoda wanted him to leap directly by 1,000 levels, it was clear that they wouldn't be delivering free kills to him. Most probably, from their estimation, the pagoda lord on this level might have a way to withstand mental/spirit attacks. If that opponent couldn't even withstand his spirit force, that would truly be too disappointing. He directly walked toward the elevator, heading to the higher levels amidst the sounds of cheering of the crowd. Breaking through 1,000 levels in a single day. This legendary feat most likely wouldn't happen again in the future. Spirit Slayer Lin Feng, there's another peak cultivator in the universe. When one cultivates a mental/spirit type gene to the limits, one will actually be so powerful and can secretly kill people. The invisible blade is truly the most fatal. Seems like it's worthy of our time to do some research on this type of mythological genes. Although Phone Lin went to higher levels, his achievements here at the 7,000 plus levels had already become a legendary story in the heaven-reaching pagoda. Countless people were recounting his tale. As for all of this, Phone Lin naturally had no idea. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care about it. The elevator speed was extremely quick, shooting upwards. Through the glass door, Phone Lin could even see the resplendent astral rivers of the universe. Riding the elevator would give the person a sensation like he was floating in space. The elevator stopped at level 8,700. He had arrived at the targeted location. After walking out, contrary to Phone Lin's expectations, this level actually didn't have the cheering noises of the earlier levels. It was more like an independent world with its own layout. The forest here was extremely dense, swaying gently in the wind. There were mountains and sources of flowing water. This land seemed to brim with vitality. In the distance, an old temple on an ancient peak could be seen. It exuded tranquility that no mortals would be willing to disturb. Next, the challenge that awaits Spirit Slayer Lin Feng would be the 8,700th pagoda. The pagoda lord here is Master Diamond. He is proficient in the skill Immovable Zen Heart and Invulnerable Vajra martial art. He has awakened the angry Vajra gene and is walking on a Buddhist-type mythological path. Can Spirit Slayer Lin Feng maintain his dominating position from before? Let us wait and see. Although this level was quiet, the broadcast of the heaven-reaching pagoda continued. Feng Lin's eyes gleamed with a silver light as he stared at his surroundings. Through the invisible masking layer, Feng Lin could see numerous figures. These were none other than the spectators and the host. Could it be that for the higher levels of the pagoda, there would be special arrangements every time? These environments could isolate the spectators and host from the fighters, so that it wouldn't affect the combatants from unleashing their full power. In fact, there might even be some unique environments that could greatly increase the strength of the pagoda lords. Buddhas have two faces, one of kindness, one of ferocity, mixing in the truth and lies. Wanting to intimidate people with its aura, yet forgetting that it's nothing but a statue made from mud. This ancient temple was on a peak surrounded by a dense forest. The levels of the heaven-reaching pagoda were a mixture of the illusory and reality. Each level was a brand new world. Feng Lin's ears moved as he suddenly heard a Zen verse. A booming bell could be heard from within the ancient temple. At this moment, a sturdy-looking great monk walked over. His skin was a bronze golden, like he was a true Vajra that had descended into the mortal world. He was at least above 3 meters in height and had a kasaya on. An aura as heavy as a mountain gushed forth from him. The staff of this monk slammed onto the ground, causing the earth to tremble. He spoke in a muffled tone. Fan Bin, the top martial monk of Vajra Temple, is here. Benefactor, I greet you. A golden monk? A true Vajra descended into the world. Feng Lin pressed his palms together and bowed in greeting. After that, he immediately started to survey his opponent. A Buddhist cultivator? In that case, the mythological gene of this man must be that of a Buddha type. The Buddhist path emphasized the cultivation of one's heart and mind. They believed that everything would eventually enter the void and that their hearts should be free of all distractions. The training of their hearts and minds far surpassed other types of cultivators. It seemed like the heaven-reaching pagoda was well prepared when they sent him to this level. Benefactor, feel free to attack, said the monk in a low muffled voice. But somehow, it boomed like thunder, resounding out loud in Feng Lin's ears. The Zen voice technique of the Buddhist sect emitted formless waves that could be used to attack the human's body. If an ordinary cultivator were to hear this, their chi and blood would churn wildly, and they would cough out blood. Even before the fight started, the monk's opponents would be weakened by 30%. But to Feng Lin, this little trick of causing his blood and chi to churn was nothing at all. He swiftly caused the flow of chi and blood in his body to stabilize. When the monk spoke, the battle had in fact already started. Since the monk had given him such a greeting, it would be impolite not to return it with another move of equal force. Feng Lin's eyes narrowed and a formless spirit wave gushed out. He tracked the mental frequency of the monk and sought to control it. The monk's expression changed and instantly performed hand seals in an attempt to block it. A movable Zen heart. He was in a half-squatting position. His right leg was like a giant pillar standing on the ground, supporting him while his left leg was crossing and resting on his bowed right leg. This stance resembled a lotus seat from some perspective. Pa. His body emitted a huge amount of golden light, and his will was as imposing as the sun and as strong as jade and stones. It was hard to forcefully make him waver. Feng Lin's spirit force was expelled. He felt like the monk was a golden, seamless man. His spirit force had no way to enter the mind of his target. Monkey King Domain. Feng Lin's heart stirred and he changed his move. His spirit force turned corporeal as a vast force gushed out, boring down the monk from all directions. Invulnerable Vajra martial arts. The monk also changed his stance. He pressed his palms together and stood in the horse stance, becoming as solid as a giant mountain. Creak, creak. The pressure bore down on him, yet he forcibly endured through it all. Wind, fire, lightning, thunder. Feng Lin's heart monkey force contained the aspect of countless transformations. He instantly converted the energies. Wild wind, blazing fire, angry thunder, and rapid lightning, all of them blasted into the body of the monk in rapid succession, yet they were forcefully dissipated upon contact with the golden light. Interesting. Feng Lin finally grew interested when he saw that the monk could withstand his opening salvo. Vajra 4 punches. After blocking the first wave of attacks, the monk wasn't someone who would simply sit there and do nothing. His body sprang into action with the ferocity of a tiger departing the mountains. Vast amounts of golden light radiated from him as he rushed forth. His punches were like the wind, an overwhelming force cracked the air, emitted from the punches. Within the golden light, 4 statues manifested. It was the 4 great golden Vajras of the Buddhist path. The monk's fists were filled with terrifying power. He unleashed 4 punches in an instant, seemingly at the same time. Black Tortoise Transformation. Upon seeing the situation, Feng Lin instantly changed his stance and unleashed the Black Tortoise transformations of his self-created 5 spirits ominous fist art. His hands were like 2 gates, resembling 2 sluices blocking before his chest, capable of contending against any attacks. The fists and palms met. Thunderous booms rang out. Ripples visible to the naked eye manifested, wrecking the surroundings. Feng Lin's figure retreated 3 steps, while the monk had to retreat 5 steps to regain his balance. In a brute force contest, the monk actually lost out by a bit. The monk widened his eyes in surprise. His expression was one of incredulous disbelief. But at this moment, Feng Lin didn't care about all these. The monk was able to block his spirit force attack and could barely be considered a true opponent for Feng Lin, after he had fought so many rounds in the heaven-reaching pagoda. Feng Lin was also keen to find out what was the true standard of human cultivators in the universe. Would the techniques he used against alien races and in the Great Wall University be prevalent against the other human cultivators in the universe? Azure Dragon Transformation of the 5 Spirits Ominous Fist Art. Feng Lin gave a long shout. He rose into the air, resembling an azure dragon rising into the sky as he directly rushed the monk. Chapter 474, Domineering Victory. Quick, quick, quick. He breathed out like a dragon. Feng Lin channeled a single breath through his body. His entire being flown up into the air like an azure dragon roaming the clouds. All of a sudden, he swooped down from the skies. His hands formed into claws of a divine dragon as an invisible pressure enveloped the surroundings. From top to bottom, the monk was completely trapped by his claw force. He wanted to make sure the monk couldn't struggle free. Good attack. The monk inclined his head. The pressure bore down on him, and under the pressure, it was like he saw an azure dragon swooping downward. An impassioned intention rose in his heart as he roared out. Invulnerable diamond body. In this short exchange of blows, the monk realized that this Lin Feng was undoubtedly a formidable opponent. He instantly used his strongest attacks, not daring to hold back. Om Mani Padme Hum. He mumbled the 6 syllables true words, one of his hands folded hand seals before his chest as golden light flooded out from him. His entire body began to expand at a speed visible to the naked eye and he soon reached 5 meters tall. He was like a Vajra descending to the mortal world. His muscular form was filled with explosive strength, like a volcano with magma churning violently within, prepared to erupt forth at any moment to destroy everything before him. Vajra Gene. His vitality stat exceeded 50,000. Feng Lin narrowed his eyes. His gaze gleamed with a silver light, and he could sense a vast unyielding force from the monk. This force felt overbearing and was as hot as the sun, not allowing any evil Daos to exist along with it. What was Vajra, diamond? Undamageable, indestructible, unbreakable. That was what Vajra was. The Vajra gene allowed the monk's body to instantly become as tough as a diamond, transforming him into the Vajra protector of the Buddhist sect in the myths. It represented a type of Tao where evil couldn't breach. Although Feng Lin was clear on this point, he showed no signs of retreating. Boom. With the momentum of his dive, he directly aimed for his opponent.
Ha!
The monk's eyes flared with anger, like that of an angered Vajra. He didn't show any signs of retreating as well. The two figures, one diving from the top and one fighting upward from the ground, clashed. Chi waves churned wildly in their surroundings as wild winds kicked up, engulfing the two of them instantly. Azure Dragon Claw Attack, Azure Dragon Tail Whip, Azure Dragon Rising. It was like Feng Lin's body was devoid of bones. He turned and twisted agilely in the air, causing numerous afterimages to appear. His claws were sharp to the extreme, aiming for the vital parts of his opponent. The monk was as stable as a mountain, standing in the horse stance. His arms protected his body, as secure as a city protected by a wall of metal and a moat of boiling water. At the instant their fists and palms met, a terrifyingly sharp aura caused this entire level to tremble, echoing with thunderous booming noises. Pilla. Feng Lin's Azure Dragon transformation was unleashed to the extreme. The entirety of his energy condensed together, transforming into lightning which shrouded him completely. His speed was greatly boosted as he flashed through the air. The greatest difference between genetic martial arts and ancient martial arts was that genetic martial arts could make use of the power of mythological genes. One could use the moves of the genetic martial arts as a medium to control the power of heaven and earth. This was something ancient martial arts that comprised solely of stances and moves alone couldn't be compared to. Tigers came from wind, dragons from clouds. Clouds also produced lightning. Crackle. The lightning around Feng Lin intensified and was released. In the span of time it took to lift his hand, countless lightning bolts crashed down, brimming with a destructive aura. Even though the monk transformed into a diamond Vajra, when he fought against Feng Lin in a direct clash, the monk felt his arms going numb and his movements were slowed by 30%. The two of them could be considered rare experts in the universe. In a fight, if one's movements were slowed by 30%, their moves would naturally not be able to keep up and would involuntarily be fatal. Bang, bang, bang. Feng Lin instantly unleashed over 10 attacks on the monk, causing the monk to retreat repeatedly. Vajra pounding pestle, Vajra carrying cauldron, Vajra subduing the mountain. The fists of the monk were like giant hammers sweeping forth horizontally in a majestic style, stimulating the Vajra gene to the maximum. The vast energy gushed out and golden light clashed against lightning, causing both to be mutually extinguished. At the center of their fight, their brutal clash manifested a vortex that was visible to the naked eye. The radiation was intense and the lines of light were distorted, causing the spectators to be unable to see clearly the scene on the battlefield. The spectators could only see two blurry figures entangled together. Outside the protective barrier, the eyes of every spectator were filled with fascination. Just the aftershock produced by this battle was so destructive. If they were present at the scene, how terrifying would that be? The path of mythological genes, the potential for transcendence, truly caused one to feel some yearning and anticipation. For these spectators, they were all wealthy and respectable, but for the majority of them, their cultivation bases weren't high. The fight between Feng Lin and the monk fully displayed the profound mysteries of mythological genes. These wealthy spectators couldn't help but feel an itch in their hearts. Bang, bang, bang. After the sound of barehanded fights echoing out, the sound of a cudgel hitting something manifested. It was unknown when, but Feng Lin now had a metal cudgel in his hand. He was executing the great sage cudgel arts. The cudgel shadows weaved in circles and the powerful force caused the air to distort. The cudgel swept out horizontally, and the force behind it formed chi waves that gave rise to tornadoes as sharp as blades, leaving deep gashes on the ground surface. Vajra subduing devil's staff. The monk's eyes flared with anger. His hands held his Zen staff and danced about with it, forming a cluster of golden afterimages. The two weapons collided against each other. It truly felt like a battle between a dragon and a tiger. The battle intent in Feng Lin's eyes also intensified. He could fight to his heart's content. It had been a long time since he met such an opponent. Earlier, he crushed everything effortlessly. It felt way too relaxed and boring. The martial arts of the Buddhist path emphasized on being tough and unyielding. They were of the yang nature. Although there weren't many transformations, their moves were all simple and exceedingly stable with only tiny flaws. Their might was extraordinary as well. Feng Lin's expertise with genetic martial arts wasn't that extensive. He had only learned less than 10 genetic martial arts. Therefore, it was inevitable that he would lose out in terms of moves. However, this monk's Vajra fist was based on the principle of no change surpassed all changes. It was a good grindstone for him to temper himself. Through the repeated clashes, Feng Lin gradually eliminated the dregs of his own moveset, simplifying the complicated moves while retaining their essence as he perfected them. And all of this transformed into genuine genetic potential. Genetic potential plus 620, plus 620, plus 620. The monk felt that he had to put in more and more effort. To his surprise, he discovered that this opponent of his was actually growing at a speed visible to the naked eye in the midst of a fight with him. If this continued, he would definitely lose after a while. But the spectators didn't have the skill to be able to realize this. The host shouted loudly, for the levels before this, Spirit Slayer Lin Feng crushed everything effortlessly. His easy manner of victory has now disappeared, being obstructed by Master Diamond. The two of them seemed evenly matched. Can Lin Feng maintain his usual domineering victory streak? Or would Master Diamond be able to guard this level? Upon hearing the voice of the host, the spectators involuntarily held their breaths. Although Feng Lin knew that the host was trying to hype up the situation, he couldn't help but feel silently unhappy when he heard that. He hadn't even unleashed the Monkey King domain and his ability of endless transformations. What did the host mean by him being evenly matched with the monk? It seemed like if he didn't unleash his true abilities, others would look down on him. Through repeated clashes, he already memorized the monk's moveset and his own techniques were already simplified and perfected to a certain extent. He didn't want to delay things anymore. Feng Lin's heart stirred as his heart monkey force frenziedly gushed out, channeled into his attacks. 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times increase. The enhancement provided by the heart monkey force could pry open materialism laws. The strength of his moves instantly exploded. Each attack was heavier than the previous one, each cudgel strike was fiercer than the previous one as well. Bang, bang, bang. He was like a metalsmith heavily smashing a piece of metal. The monk's face was flushed and his hands were trembling from the impact. What was going on? Why did his opponent's strength suddenly rise so much? What mythological gene had his opponent awakened exactly? The monk's face was filled with incredulity and his heart with disbelief. The scene now completely exceeded his knowledge. The Sun Wukong mythological path was a perfect mythological path that had never appeared before. The profound mysteries it contained were naturally unimaginable to others. His moves remained the same, yet the power behind them was now completely different. Strength overcomes everything. The monk's body swayed under the weight, and he staggered backward. Even his golden body showed signs of cracking. Boom. Great sage chop. Feng Lin then followed up with a hook punch. His heart monkey force gave him a 10x enhancement in strength, and his fist was like a hammer, whistling through the air. This caused the atmosphere to be oppressive as light distorted. Even space was affected. 30x increase. Abruptly, he focused the entirety of his heart monkey force onto his fist. His strength instantly exploded forth with a 30x increase. He wanted to determine victory and defeat with a single move. What? That monk had a shocked look on his face. When he felt the power of this punch, incomparable terror filled his heart. He had to block this punch no matter what or he would surely lose. A mobile Vidra. The monk roared. His entire body expanded once more as he crossed his arms, transforming into an immovable Vidra, exuding an aura that nothing could move him. But at the next instant, the punch landed. His expression drastically changed. His eyeballs protruded out, and he felt like an entire mountain just slammed into him, completely dominating him. A moment later, he was flung through the air from the impact and slammed heavily onto the ground. His arms were both broken and the golden light from him also dimmed. He no longer had the strength to continue fighting. The host's mouth was wide open, he hadn't even finished his speech yet. Originally, they looked to be evenly matched, but all of a sudden, one move ended everything. This caused him to be unable to react in time and he felt like his face had just been smacked. He could feel a burning sensation on his cheeks. Victor, Spirit Slayer Lin Feng. He could only act nonchalantly as he named the victor. It ended so quickly. I thought the host said that they were both evenly matched? Why did it end so quickly in an instant? What has this Lin Feng done exactly? What is this Lin Feng doing exactly? The spectators all discussed fervently. They discovered that it wasn't easy for Feng Lin to display his methods, yet after he did so, none of them understood what they were seeing. Right now, Feng Lin felt a little tired. His eyes drooped as he silently mused that it wasn't physical fatigue but mental fatigue instead. With his spirit force, he swept through everything with invincibility and directly ascended 1,000 levels like flower viewing from horseback. Although he only had one true opponent, he couldn't help but feel sick of these easy victories in his heart. When he thought of this, he no longer hesitated. He walked off the battlefield and went to the lodgings they had arranged for him. He then closed his eyes and began his meditation. Name, Feng Lin. Vitality stat, 48,200. Hotian genes, Sun Wukong gene x4, Cultivation gene x3. Heaven genes, Monkey King gene x10, Dowheart gene x10. Genetic potential, 6,780. After he recovered, he decisively added the free Hotian genetic point he had gained through the accumulations to the Sun Wukong gene, strengthening it to 4 points. His vitality stat also reached a level that was very close to the 50,000 mark. However, things weren't concluded yet. Feng Lin discovered that his pagoda points had unknowingly climbed up to over 1 million. Pagoda points were useless outside and could only be used inside the heaven-reaching pagoda to exchange for cultivation resources. It would be a waste if he didn't use them. Feng Lin opened up the web net of the pagoda and began to browse. Star sand, micromecha armor, genetic medicine, mythological remnants, there was everything here, but all these weren't sufficient to pique Feng Lin's interest. One must know that he had seen too many of these things during his stay at the Great Wall University. Huaxiao Mythology, Dragon Race Genetic Sequence Diagram. Genetic Sequence Diagram? This type of diagram drawn Feng Lin's attention the instant it appeared. Chapter 475, Genetic Sequence Diagrams. A genetic sequence diagram? Such a thing also existed in the heaven-reaching pagoda? When he looked at the displays on the heaven-reaching pagoda's web, Feng Lin couldn't help but feel startled. Genetic sequence diagrams weren't ordinary mythological knowledge. It was one of the most precious types. It detailed the evolution sequence of each gene and was a complete path that represented a complete mythological, evolutionary diagram. In this interstellar era where mythologies and legends had vanished, a completed genetic sequence was one of the rarest things. And this heaven-reaching pagoda actually had genetic sequence diagrams for sale. Things were interesting then. It seemed like this pagoda really had capable people and was extremely good at genetic research. He mustn't underestimate it. The Great Wall University would usually fight against alien races and had countless souvenirs of war. Hence, their cultivation resources that involved mythological cultivation were the most. They would usually have some extremely rare cultivation oddities of the Milky Way galaxy. The heaven-reaching tower was created to gather all interstellar cultivators, so they could fight each other and temper themselves. It was a place where mythological genes clashed intensely against each other, and one's essence and potential would be completely displayed out. Also, the data of the cultivators were collated and recorded. The heaven-reaching pagoda used the data and created a huge database while conducting a large-scale analysis. They gradually managed to probe out a complete mythological pathway that could allow one to reach the heavens. From Phone Lin's perspective, this genetic sequence diagram was undoubtedly the most valuable item in the pagoda. This diagram was created through the analysis of data gathered from vast amounts of low-level interstellar cultivators. But even so, the genetic sequence diagram that was created was still considered extremely rare even in the top 10 universities of the cosmos. Although the top 10 universities had vast power, the intelligence of the billions of humans was boundless. Huaxia mythology, dragon race genetic sequence diagram? What piqued Phone Lin's interest was that this genetic sequence diagram was actually about the dragon race of Huaxia mythology. The divine dragons of Huaxia mythology were completely different from giant flying lizards of the West. One was an innately born divine creature, while the other was simply a powerful magical creature. Ever since ancient times, people of Huaxia had proclaimed themselves as sons of the dragons. They innately possessed the divine dragon gene in their bodies. What did this genetic sequence diagram show exactly? It was inevitable for Phone Lin to feel extremely curious. This genetic sequence diagram needed 300,000 pagoda points just to browse it. Ordinary people would surely not be able to afford this. However, Phone Lin had passed through all the previous levels so easily. He might as well use his pagoda points instead of letting them go to waste. He wasn't stingy at all and instantly inserted all his accumulated points in. The information on the genetic sequence diagram instantly appeared before his eyes. Python gene X9 plus ancestral recall gene X8 equals Hui gene. Mist gene X7 plus electricity gene X9 equals thunderclap gene. Hui gene X9 plus thunderclap gene X9 equals flood dragon gene. Flood dragon gene X9 plus heaven calamity gene X10 equals true dragon gene. From the basic genes to the primeval genes and all the way to the Hotian gene. The sequence was clearly detailed. Hui was considered a poisonous species of snake and was also known as little dragons. They would transform into a flood dragon in 500 years, and flood dragons would transform into dragons after 1,000 years. Each gene formula agreed implicitly with his mythological knowledge. As Phone Lin was reading, the genetic equation ability of his also revolved rapidly. Genetic potential -120, -120, -120. His genetic potential was rapidly consumed. Because the information on the genetic formulas was already displayed before him, the amount of genetic potential being consumed each time was greatly reduced. Through his genetic equation ability, he received confirmation of this genetic sequence diagram. There was not a single mistake. Seems like there are also geneticists in the heaven-reaching pagoda. Phone Lin nodded his head. The only flaw was that this genetic sequence diagram came to a stop after the true dragon gene. There weren't any genetic formulas listed after that. Phone Lin didn't know whether the pagoda didn't have the information or they had intentionally concealed it. But Phone Lin's genetic equation ability had given him the next formula. True dragon gene X10 plus divinity gene X9 equals divine dragon gene. Divine dragon gene, perfect heaven gene. Ability, roaming freely through heaven and earth. Dragons could be big or small, they could rise through the air or conceal themselves. Large dragons could breathe mist and clouds, and small dragons could conceal themselves perfectly. They were able to soar through the universe or hide through the great waves of the cosmos. According to the information, as long as one awakened the divine dragon gene, they would naturally gain the ability to travel through heaven and earth and fly in outer space. They could control rain, using the energy of heaven and earth for themselves. What an excellent divine dragon gene. Feng Lin silently marveled. If he had known this genetic sequence when he first arrived in this world, because his ancestry was from Huaxia, he might have felt his heart being stirred and might have chosen this path. It was a pity that he had already chosen the Sun Wukong mythological path. It was impossible for him to reverse his steps and restart his cultivation. But even so, the Divine Dragon genetic sequence diagram was also a genetic diagram with huge potential. Feng Lin memorized it and turned it into part of his reserves. Evil Demon genetic sequence diagram of Western mythologies. Shikigami genetic sequence diagram of Japanese mythologies. Asura genetic sequence diagram of Indian mythologies. After that, Feng Lin began to use his accumulated points to exchange for the other genetic sequence diagrams. There were all sorts of genetic sequence diagrams which involved the various mythological systems of the ancient Earth era. All of them had information that could be traced back to the true nature of mythologies. His expenditure of pagoda points was like flowing water. Feng Lin was completely immersed in the information recorded within the genetic sequence diagrams, and he lost himself in the profound mysteries of the various mythological genes. His genetic equation ability rapidly began to circulate as he probed the rationality of the deducements. The complex genetic formulas were checked through and their accuracy rate was as high as 92%. Other than some minor details being different, they were all generally correct. The only thing insufficient was that these genetic sequence diagrams only reached the heaven genes level and stopped abruptly. They were not perfect at all. But even so, they were still considered extremely rare and valuable. Feng Lin expended all his pagoda points on the available genetic sequence diagrams. After that, he started to investigate. Genetic sequence diagrams were the base of mythological cultivation. By right, every type should have a progenitor. Who were the ones who managed to probe out these genetic sequencing? Feng Lin involuntarily felt excited. These people were undoubtedly grandmasters in mythological cultivation. If he could meet them personally and exchanged information, both would definitely be able to gain great insights respectively. Sadly, after he finished his investigation, each genetic sequence diagram had a sentence: the progenitors' identities are a secret. One has to reach the 9,000 level before they can have the authority to check it. All the genetic sequence diagrams he obtained stated the same thing. Feng Lin's eyes flashed with a bright light. He wasn't shocked but was happy instead. It was fine for one or two to have such a restriction. But all the genetic diagrams had this restriction? Could it be that they were all created by the same individual? In that case, how deep the person's understanding must have reached. Even if that person couldn't be comparable to himself, he or she would already be considered an individual that was as rare as phoenix feathers and Kirin's horns in the current era. Feng Lin grew more and more interested in this person. Level 9,000 of the heaven-reaching pagoda? This wasn't difficult for him at all. He smiled and consumed a constitution-restoring pill to recover to his peak state. After that, he returned to the heaven-reaching pagoda. Next, Spirit Slayer Lin Feng will challenge the pagoda lord of the 8,701 level, Giant King Orn. The environment resembled hell. Lava spewed everywhere and the temperature here exceeded 1,000 degrees. The churning heat waves caused the air to ripple. When Feng Lin entered it, a gigantic figure about 10 meters in height began to take large strides and move over. His body was covered in lava. He wielded a giant hammer and was carrying the heat waves along with his movements. It was like he was a human-shaped volcano rushing over. Chapter 476, Changing in Size According to One's Desires. Boom boom boom. Seas of flame seethed and heat waves were overwhelming. A molten lava giant came forward in large strides, covered in seething lava. He had a height of over 10 meters and was extremely terrifying. The massive level in the pagoda was modified into something like a hell. The temperature was scorching at over 1,000 degrees Celsius, wanting to roast one into charred coal. Feng Lin was drenched in sweat just by taking one step in. All of his blood, together with any water content in his body, was all going to be evaporated. The figure came over in large strides, sending his metal hammer smashing down heavily. The hammer was covered in blazing flames, like a hammer of the fire god that would incinerate everything into ashes. Clank! Feng Lin held the cudgel in his hand and went up to face his opponent. The hammer and cudgel clashed, sending sparks splattering. It was as if a small mountain came pressing down and Feng Lin was hammered into the ground, appearing shorter than he was. The lava giant didn't have it good either. The power of the clash was beyond imagination and its massive figure kept on being pushed back. His steps became heavy, creating loud sounds as it stomped down on the ground. Their figures had a difference of 5 to 6 times in size, but they were equally matched. The scene was truly astonishing, causing a series of gasps to ring out. What a good kid! To think that you have such a massive strength. It seems that it isn't without reason that you managed to defeat Master Diamond. The molten lava giant Orn spoke up in a low and muffled voice. His voice like a loud bell, as if lightning and fire had clashed. You're shocked by just this? I haven't exerted any strength yet. The corners of Feng Lin's lips twitched. Without saying much, he headed forth. Great Sage Cudgel Arts. His metal cudgel extended out rapidly, waving to become densely packed cudgel attacks that encompassed Orn within it. Bang bang bang. Orn's body was massive and there was nowhere for it to hide. It kept on being struck in succession and banging sounds rang out. You pipsqueak. You've infuriated me. Orn let out an enraged bellow and he seethed in anger. He suddenly smashed down with its 2 hammers, sending out a stretch of lightning hell and flaming seas that engulfed Feng Lin instantly. The cudgel attacks were overwhelming, causing the flaming sea to keep on seething. One man, one cudgel facing the flaming sea. That massive giant attacked head-on, its 2 hammers smashing down heavily like mountains. With each swing, it was as if the fire god had descended onto the world. 2 top-notch interstellar cultivators at the Adept realm engaged in an intense battle, being capable of using great energies with every move. The battle had long reached an inhuman domain, and the battle scene was like one that came out from myths and legends. Unknowingly, everyone watching the battle held their breaths, not even daring to breathe too heavily. Your body is so small, so how can you possibly be a match for me? Orn laughed non-stop, looking down on Feng Lin with an air of superiority. His hammers and fists came crashing down and his massive figure surrounded Feng Lin, causing him to be unable to dodge. With the help from the flaming sea, although he couldn't hurt Feng Lin, he could hold him back, not leaving any space for him to dodge. Facing Feng Lin's cudgel attacks, Orn didn't give a damn and kept on sending his hammer down. They appeared very normal, yet their prowess was great. Even if your cudgel attacks have endless transformations, I'll smash through them with a single hammer. Ever since the Spirit Slayer started to challenge the heaven-reaching pagoda, this is the first time he is being suppressed. The Giant King Orn had awakened the Giant King gene. As expected of the most ferocious cultivator below the 9,000th level. Could it be that this is really going to be the first time Spirit Slayer Linfeng will be having a taste of defeat? The host kept on hyping up the atmosphere. Giant King. Giant King. Giant King. Seeing that Orn was gaining an advantage as if the victory was already decided, everyone present kept on bellowing non-stop, cheering him on. The place was filled with fervent and admiration. Kid, this is my win. You'll have to cultivate for another 100 years to be able to win against me, the Giant King Orn. Orn grinned and suddenly raised both his hands high. Giant King Might. His entire figure became bigger once again, swelling up. It instantly surged up by 3 times, reaching a height of 30 meters, like a small mountain. He lowered his head to look at that tiny figure next to his feet. He smiled in contempt, lifted one leg, and slowly put it down as if stomping an ant to death, not caring in the slightest. You think you are invincible just because your body is big? Feng Lin didn't dodge when he faced the stomp that was coming down from above him. He let out a low laugh. Then let's have a competition with our sizes. I don't really like to raise my head and look up at others. Grow, grow, grow. With a single thought, Feng Lin's spine crackled and his body kept on growing. 2 meters, 3 meters, 5 meters. Very soon, it exceeded 10 meters. However, he still wasn't stopping. What? Orn's eyes that were huge as the size of a small house glared in disbelief as he looked at this small person, growing bigger until he reached over 30 meters tall like he was. Just this alone wasn't enough to let Feng Lin feel satisfied. He channeled all of his heart monkey force into his body and grew more. His massive figure continued to grow like bamboo shoots breaking out from the earth. 50 meters, 70 meters, 100 meters. Orn's mouth opened increasingly wider and his head also turned from looking downward to looking upward. Before this massive mountain-like figure, it was as if he had turned into a dwarf, weak and helpless. They said that life was full of ups and downs. However, it hadn't even been 3 seconds. His mind was filled with feelings of absurdness and disbelief. However, right now, the attacking forces immediately gushed toward him. How is this possible? Orn bellowed furiously with a voice like stifled thunder. Mythological genes have unlimited potential. Nothing is impossible. Feng Lin said calmly and clenched one of his fists, punching down heavily like a small mountain. Boom. The air instantly became extremely stuffy, rapidly compressing from the impact and condensing layers of dark clouds that encompassed the fist like a thick layer of glove. This punch couldn't be fended off. The fist came down from above. Orn raised his head and his body was trembling. I don't believe that your body can be bigger than my giant king gene. Illusion, it must be an illusion. I'm not afraid of you. He bellowed out wildly, mobilizing all the powers in his body. He sent his metal hammer upward, then smashing them down hysterically and violently. However, the pair of eyes above the cloud of layers were ice cold. At the next instant, an endless amount of power came crashing down as if the heavenly pillar had collapsed. Orn immediately glared, with blood veins radiating out. His arms were trembling as if he was lifting an entire block of mountains. His arms broke and without any resistance, he was flattened onto the ground. He had previously been the one that composed himself with an air of superiority, crushing Feng Lin with his overwhelming strength. However, Feng Lin had returned the favor over 100 times. He wasn't even able to fend against a single punch. The winner is Spirit Slayer Lin Feng. The tables were turned in an instant and even the host's voice was stuttering. Feng Lin didn't stop and headed straight for the next level of the heaven-reaching pagoda. Genetic potential plus 1,200. After a great battle, he received a tremendous amount of potential points. However, this still wasn't what Feng Lin was concerned about the most. When he used the Endless Transformations ability to make his body bigger, he suddenly discovered a mysterious phenomenon. When his body got bigger, it didn't just have an increment in strength. Even his mind, spirit, and essence also grew relatively. Body as a treasure raft that would lead the multitude of lives to the other shore, bypassing the sea of bitterness. Spirit and soul as the helmsman. The spirit was attached to the body. When the body got bigger, the soul would also grow. His control over the worldly prowess would also get increasingly proficient, changing in size according to one's desires. With the expansion of the human body, although the overall amount of genetic power didn't change, the amount of emission per time unit underwent a change. It became more suitable for an explosive burst of one's prowess. Feng Lin was suddenly struck with a thought. Could this be the profoundness of heaven-earth law manifestations in the myths and legends? Chapter 477, Heaven-Earth Law Manifestations. Heaven-Earth Law Manifestations. This was a skill in Huaxia's ancient mythology that had a tremendous prowess. It was said that it could allow one to freely transform themselves. The user could become so big that they could support the sky, change the positions of the stars, move mountains, and fill up the seas. Feng Lin moved slowly toward the higher level as he comprehended the changes that had taken place in his body. Although the human body was weak, it was a Xiantian Dao body and possessed endless profoundness. The 5 fingers corresponded to the 5 elements and planets, the eyes corresponded to the sun and the moon, yin and yang. The 4 limbs corresponded to the 4 phases and directions. When Feng Lin's body became bigger, he could sense that even the fine prints on his skin also became increasingly prominent, becoming like the mountains and rivers, gradually forming a massive formation that seemed to be able to encompass the entire world. Feng Lin gained comprehension. What was the heaven-earth law manifestations? The human body and the world were extremely profound, and even one's skin and flesh indistinctly formed a formation that was harmonious with the world. In the form of an ordinary person, the effects of this innate formation would be too low and wouldn't be able to demonstrate much profoundness. Once it was magnified by 100 times, a great formation would be set up. With a single thought, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth could be mobilized as one's energy. Every single move would thus possess tremendous prowess. This might be the true essence behind the heaven-earth law manifestations. A magnified body, as well as the instincts to propel the human body to take on the shape of the world. This was something that hadn't just been documented in Huaxia's myths and legends. In the ancient Greek myths and legends, every god on Mount Olympus possessed a huge body that was beyond anyone's imagination. The 3 main gods in Hinduism mythology also had bodies that were as massive as the world. With there being so many similar documentation, it couldn't be a coincidence. Moreover, it seemed that when in this state, it was even easier to control the energies of the world, unleashing the human body's natural abilities to their greatest degree. Feng Lin went deep into thought, but he didn't stop moving. Very soon, he arrived at a higher level. Next up is the battle between the Spirit Slayer and the Ice Empress, the host once again introduced to the audiences. Right now, as Feng Lin continued to advance forth, he had long since attracted the gazes of everyone in the heaven-reaching pagoda. There were no empty seats amongst the audiences in the battles he took part in. There were many faces wearing varying expressions of nervousness, hostility, and admiration. However, Feng Lin didn't pay much attention to them. A wave of strong chill came encompassing him like clouds or fog. A tall and slender figure walked out slowly. Her long icy blue hair draped down to the ground, and she was a great beauty with a cold aura that would keep people away. To think that the Ice Empress was actually a cool beauty. She came forth with seething icy waves surging along with her. Frost Ice Hell. At the host's call, the Ice Empress didn't say a single word but took action immediately. Her blue hair fluttered with the wind and the temperature in the air plunged rapidly as if one had dropped into an ice cave. Rumble. Many ice mountains root up from the ground and the mountain ranges undulated, pushing their way over, wanting to freeze everything before them. In an instant, Feng Lin felt layers of extremely cold mountain ranges surrounding him from all directions, as if they could freeze even the spirit with the human body. His body temperature plunged rapidly. His gaze contracted and he suddenly saw many figures that weren't breathing amongst the layers of ice mountains. Judging by their remnants' prowess, they were clearly all interstellar cultivators that had been completely frozen. Were all these challengers who had failed? They had turned into ice, becoming the Ice Empress's souvenirs. Feng Li was shocked. It seemed that all female cultivators who could reach the adept realm weren't to be trifled with. Their means were very vicious. There were layers of ice mountains, undulating peaks, and the changed geographical terrain. Such a wide area attack was something hard to achieve. This is good as well. Let me test out the profoundness of the heaven-earth law manifestations. Grow, grow, grow. With a thought, his body swelled up once again, rapidly reaching his previous height of 100 meters. However, he still didn't stop. Feng Lin had the intention to test out his limits and he darted out like a missile. As his body swelled up, he could clearly sense that something was different. The prints on his skin connected together and there was the spiritual chi of heaven and earth flowing, vaguely radiating a treasured glow. Feng Lin's pores opened up and as he breathed, he could sense that he was surrounded by spiritual chi. It would only take a single thought for him to be able to freely control them. This feeling hit a limit when Feng Lin's body reached 300 meters. Boom boom boom. Feng Lin beckoned with both hands and his entire body burned up in flames. The earth fiend true fire gushed out from his body, sending up overwhelming damages. Flaming sea colliding into ice mountains. Two extreme powers, scorching heat and freezing chill, collided, erasing each other. They unleashed scorching vapor explosively, sending them permeating across the entire space. The massive space was completely filled up by the vapor, making it hard for others to see what had happened. Who wins? I can't see anything. I wonder if the Ice Empress will be able to stop the Spirit Slayer's advancements. Everyone was trying to guess who had won. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, a series of deafening sounds rang out. The mountains collapsed and the strong fog dissipated. A figure that was as tall as a mountain walked out, covered in flames, appearing as if the fire god had descended. With every move he made, endless flames would rain down. The ice mountains melted, seeming as if they were going to turn into a flood. However, before they landed on the ground, they were immediately vaporized, dissipating into the air. The many frozen corpses were also completely burned up into ashes and scattered away. When the Ice Empress saw her collection burned into ashes, she let out a piercing scream. Frost Ice Ancient Dragon Gene. Ice crystals rapidly formed around her, condensing into a three-headed ice dragon that roared savagely. They brought along absolute coldness and pounced toward Feng Lin. However, before the ice dragon had completely taken form, a huge palm had already struck out through the air, grabbing the ice dragon by the neck where the three heads were connected at. The palm was like a blade, piercing through fiercely, and the earth fiend true fire gushed into it. One was an illusory figure that had been formed by the cold, while the other was an actual heaven-earth law manifestation that had a physical form. It was clear which was more superior with just one attack. The three-headed ice dragon howled agonizingly, instantly melting into water and flowing down. Feng Lin opened up his palm. There lay a beautiful figure that was completely soaked, revealing her great curves. He placed her down on the ground, returned to the size of an ordinary person, then turned to leave. The winner is still the Spirit Slayer Lin Feng. The host's tone sounded as if he no longer found this to be strange. Instead, it sounded a little weak, as if there was no doubt who the winner would be. Who would be the one capable of stopping Lin Feng's advancements? A strong doubt rose in him. Genetic potential +1 400. The Heaven-Earth Law manifestations depleted too much genetic power. In just 2 battles, Feng Lin's origin chi had been depleted and it couldn't be replenished even with the increment to his genetic potential. Feng Lin returned to the room and an idea struck him. Since this Heaven-Earth Law manifestations could increase the prowess of his moves by many folds, would it also be able to increase the rate of his cultivation? It was worth a try. Feng Lin sat down cross-legged and silently circulated the grand-grade heavenly immortal art. While he breathed, his body seemed to have turned into a vortex, pulling in the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, forming many typhoons that could be seen by the naked eye. The auras around him grew stronger rapidly, encompassed by spiritual chi that existed with the world. Even the prints on his skin also radiated treasured glows. The formation took form naturally. Late phase of transforming energy into chi. Genetic potential +600, +600, +600. Chapter 478, Cultivation of the Past and the Present. A height of over 300 meters. A giant that supported the heavens stood in the world. The prints on his skin were like the mountains and meandering rivers, with a gathering of geomancy. His eyes were like the sun and the moon, and his head, palms, and bottom of his feet were faced upward, naturally forming a massive formation. Amidst his breathing, a treasured glow appeared on the human body formation, and the surrounding spiritual chi gathered over like myriad birds returning to the forest. The spiritual chi was rapidly refined, strengthening the mind, spirit, and essence, which resulted in the surge of true origin energy. At one go, Feng Lin cultivated to the late phase of transforming energy into chi. Transforming energy into chi was a process of refining the energies in the human body, to allow it to merge with the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. After performing heaven-earth law manifestations, Feng Lin's body surged in size, and his mind, spirit, and essence also increased in many folds. The rate at which spiritual chi was refined was even more exaggerated, like a whale swallowing up the seas. As Feng Lin breathed, a spiritual chi vortex that could be seen by the naked eye formed between his mouth and nose, releasing a whooshing sound. The true origin energy in his body surged like floodwaters, with the water levels rising incessantly, to the extent that it was going to reach his own limits. Feng Lin also felt that he was like an inflated balloon, reaching a level where he couldn't expand anymore. It was as if his body was about to burst. He had already reached his limits and would only be able to reach a greater realm by surpassing his limits. Feng Lin silently circulated the grand-grade heavenly immortal art, sending his true origin energy seething. They came out from his lower dantian, surging upward, and heading for his upper dantian. Strengthening of the true origin energy, replenishing the origin spirit. A hint of silver light radiated out from Feng Lin's forehead and his spirit force naturally extended out, releasing strong hints of vigor and vitality. His spirit surged like a balloon, repeatedly breaking out from his body's constraints. It arrived at a realm of great comprehension, being above all existences in the world. His thoughts could clearly sense the surroundings, being able to view everything clearly. Buzz buzz buzz. Mental spirit materialization. The objects in the surroundings were driven by his psi force and they rumbled. Feng Lin felt as if an invisible door had been opened up and his thoughts were being magnified incessantly, existing together with the world. This mental energy distorted the space, gradually forming a huge figure. The figure's mouth, nose, eyes, ears, and limbs were all present, being almost identical to Feng Lin. Genetic potential plus 2000, plus 2000, plus 2000. Cultivating chi, restoring spirit. Divine law avatar. Feng Lin opened his eyes abruptly, with electricity shooting out. The mental energy surged in his body, releasing a compelling aura. He felt like a human-shaped volcano, with majestic powers being suppressed within him. Having been cultivating the heaven-earth law manifestations for so long, not only did he not feel any hint of fatigue, but his auras also grew increasingly stronger. The domineering prowess of this skill could be inferred from this alone. The heaven-earth law manifestations allowed the human body to become closer to that of divinity, with each action being compatible with that of heaven and earth. His cultivation gene allowed his body's aptitude to increase tremendously and his cultivation rate improved many folds over. His genetic potential increased crazily, replenishing his mythological genes. After reaching the realm of cultivating chi and restoring spirit, he felt that his body was very different from before. Not only did his mental energy underwent a qualitative change, but it also underwent a quantitative change. If it could be said that the spirit gene brought out the full potential of his mythological genes. Then the ancient cultivation technique turned this small pond into a great lake. Eventually, it would even be possible to turn it into an endless stretch of ocean. From this point alone, Feng Lin had a hint of comprehension and understood the greatest difference between mythological cultivation and the ancient way of cultivation. The ancient cultivation technique was completely different yet passed down from the same origin. They were all different routes toward achieving the same results, immortality. The mythological genes brought out the full aptitude and potential of the ancient legacies. These ancient legacies were the greatest treasures that the god and demon ancestors had passed down to the interstellar humans. There were no ends to unearthing them. On the other hand, cultivating to achieving immortality borrowed the powers from heaven and earth, transforming the mortal body into a state of transcendence and divinity, gradually moving toward that endless path. There was no comparison of superiority between the two. If they were both cultivated to an extreme, both methods would arrive at the same results. Feng Lin closed his eyes gradually, immersing in his comprehension and trying to understand the greatest difference between the two. One made use of true origin energy, the other, mythological genetic power. The true origin energy circulated within the 8 extraordinary meridians and meridian channels in the body. The mythological genetic power, on the other hand, flowed and circulated within the blood, flesh, and cells incessantly. Both of them weren't contradictory. Could they be cultivated concurrently? He instantly felt that this was highly possible. Propelling both concurrently. What would happen if both could be brought to the highest realm? With the duo's collaboration, possessing the essence of ancient cultivation, it might increase the possibility of arriving at the opposite shores that transcended over everything else. Feng Lin started cultivating immediately, circulating the grand-grade heavenly immortal art while controlling the circulation of the true origin energy within his body. He formed a great cycle that communicated with the external world, merging as one with the heavens and earth. Moreover, he stimulated the Sun Wukong and cultivation gene, activating his flesh, blood, and cells to the greatest degree. Their reactions to spiritual qi reached the highest level of activity, as if becoming one with the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, becoming a transcendent creature. The heart monkey force extended out, transforming continuously. Wherever they covered, all the spiritual qi of heaven and earth would be in his control. What's happening? Where has all the spiritual qi of heaven and earth gone to? The spirit particles content in the air is at 0? What happened? How am I going to cultivate without spiritual qi? It was as if Feng Lin had turned into a bottomless black hole, crazily engulfing the spiritual qi. All the spiritual qi on this level of the heaven-reaching pagoda was sapped dry, turning the place into a barren desert for cultivation. Countless interstellar cultivators who were in the midst of cultivation were instantly awoken. They started to move around the place, feeling dissatisfied. Feng Lin, the person who caused all this, continued to be immersed in his cultivation, unable to draw himself out. Mythological genes were a concrete representation of humans' cultivation aptitude. After being stimulated, they would fully bring out one's aptitude. At the same time, through the ancient cultivation technique, one would engulf the spiritual qi of heaven and earth into one's body. The two were like yin and yang, secretly forming a tai chi circle in the body. Mythological genetic powers stimulated one's aptitude and mobilized spiritual qi. Spiritual qi transformed into true origin energy that tempered flesh and blood, turning all into genetic potential. Yin and yang complementing each other. Feng Lin's mythological genetic power and true origin energy grew stronger rapidly, improving in leaps and bounds. His true origin energy unknowingly started to gush forth like tidal waves, striking his meridian channels and acupuncture points. An ordinary person would probably have exploded, but Feng Lin's cultivation was already at the adept realm and his body was like a heavily tempered diamond, with rock skin and metal bones, being tough and indestructible. No matter how majestic his true origin energy was, they wouldn't be able to impact his body within a short period. It could be said that after having awakened the Sun Wukong gene, Feng Lin had achieved the half-saint body. Now that he turned back to cultivate his true origin energy, it'd be like pouring water off a steep roof. His improvement was naturally at a rapid rate, without any hurdles. After attaining a breakthrough, he didn't stop at all but continued to cultivate to the middle phase of cultivating qi, restoring spirit. This wasn't all. Genetic potential, 23,890. After cultivating incessantly, Feng Lin once again obtained 2 free Hotian genetic points. He added them to the Sun Wukong gene and cultivation gene decisively, and his attributes changed tremendously. Name, Feng Lin. Vitality, 61,900. Hotian gene, Sun Wukong gene X5, Cultivation gene X4. Heaven gene, Monkey King gene X10, Dowheart gene X10. Genetic potential, 3890. Chapter 479, Stone Monkey vs. Azura. Who? Feng Lin stood up, exhaling slowly. His exhale turned into a strong gale that blew in the air, and all his fatigue disappeared. His vitality surpassed 60,000 points. Even though he had used the heaven-earth law manifestations for so long, with his breakthrough in his cultivation, not only did he not feel tired, but his mind, spirit, and essence also got a lot stronger than before. This made Feng Lin increasingly certain that the best way of cultivating was still to temper the heart incessantly. Sun Wukong was the heart monkey. The stronger its heart, the stronger its power. When there was no limit to one's heart, one's powers would be limitless. They'd be able to fight and battle and win. We called them the combat saint. The best way to temper the heart was a life and death battle. Feng Lin understood the crux to this. Thus, he continued to attempt to clear the levels without stopping. He still remembered that only by clearing the 9,000th level would he be able to find out the hidden secret behind the heaven-reaching pagoda's genetic sequence diagram. Next, let us welcome the battle between Spirit Slayer Lin Feng against Azura King Sing. Amidst the host's shouting voice, a new round of battle started. This was already the 8,712 level. The entire floor had been built into a hellish environment, with charred corpses everywhere and seething heat waves. It was a barren land where no life existed. A figure with dark brown skin sat amidst the molten lava. He was tall, slender, and big, filled with power and beauty. I know you, Lin Feng. I don't care what mythological genes you've awakened, now that you're facing me, everything is going to end for you. Before me, Azura King Sing, all means will be shattered under my fists. Sing kept on laughing maniacally, his eyes bloodshot, filled with savageness and violence. If you want a battle, then just do it. This is too much crap talk. Feng Lin let out a cold snort, replying with attacks that weren't showy at all. Monkey King Domain. Wind, fire, thunder, lightning, all of the powers gathered together, bringing forth an energy tempest that instantly drowned out his opponent. Feng Lin's eyes were cold. If the opponent couldn't even fend off this attack, then he'd just be impressive looking but actually useless. He shall see what kind of remarkable skills this so-called Azura King had. Azura Devil Body. This Indian, Sing, really did have some capabilities. He let out enraged bellows incessantly, and all his bones crackled like roaring thunder. His punches also struck out like a violent storm, creating densely packed fist shadows. Wherever the fists passed by, they would bring along compelling baleful auras. This Sing managed to rely only on the physical strength of his punches to smash all the energy attacks into smithereens. His body was like a heavily tempered steel, emitting strong baleful auras that shook one's heart. The moment one got close, it'd be as if they had seen mountains of corpses and seas of blood, which would cause their heart to go out of control. The baleful auras took on a physical form, as if it was a physical armor that encompassed all parts of his body, not leaving any gaps at all. Azura Gene? Seeing that Sing was protected by baleful auras, Feng Lin's eyes narrowed a little. His interest seemed to have been piqued a little. Hindu mythology was also a great mythological system amongst the interstellar humans, out of which, Azura was the most renowned evil god. He was said to be able to battle against the heavens, while never showing fear. This aspect bore a great resemblance to the stone monkey. Both of them were the rare few battle gods of the world. Between them, which one was stronger and which one was weaker? Feng Lin couldn't help but feel curious. He couldn't be bothered with the crap talk, but chose to determine the winner through actions. The host let out a strong bellow. He instantly made a move. Azure Dragon Transformation. Feng Lin leaped into the air like an azure dragon that soared into the sky, bringing along an overwhelming force. His fists were like collapsing mountains, destroying everything in their paths. Good job in coming over. Seeing this, Sang was also overjoyed and didn't dodge. His entire body radiated a black aura. Boom. Their punches clashed. Both of their bodies trembled intensely. The clash of their powerful forces brought forth seething air currents, and even the earth tremored. This was just the initial exchange. They quickly separated after coming into contact. What that followed were even more violent attacks that came down like rain. Their fists collided and sparks splattered, as if two stones were smashing into each other. The two of them were like the battle gods from ancient myths and legends that had descended onto the world. Every punch they made hit their targets, and the repercussive waves from their attacks also created so much stir that the meteorological phenomena went through changes. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. The sound of the collisions kept ringing out, like densely packed hammerings onto one's heart. It made one feel so depressed that they'd want to puke blood. Compared to the stone monkey's impenetrable stone body and steel bones, not only did the Azura Law body possess violent strength, but it was also encompassed by strong baleful auras that could seep into one's heart. The baleful auras could also form protection, having the ability to be impenetrable by all attacks. With the reinforcements of the baleful auras, even seemingly ordinary punches had additional sharpness to them. Feng Lin kept on attacking, and his moves were accompanied by lightning and violent rainstorms. However, under the baleful auras, all of his attacks were negated and disappeared without a trace. It was really using one attack to deal with the entire world. The Azura gene propelled endless baleful auras and was extremely vicious. It was truly impenetrable. The purer the power, the stronger they tended to be. Those that were showy tended to be just impressive looking but actually useless. Seeing how unyielding his opponent was, Feng Lin only smirked. Baleful aura. You aren't the only person with it. White tiger transformation. Feng Lin's eyes narrowed and his pupils became a vertical slit. He emitted baleful auras rapidly, and faint tiger prints appeared on his face. His hands turned into claws and his back arched up. In the blink of an eye, he had become a white tiger that stood up on its hind legs. The white tiger was the god of killing of the West, the master of all baleful auras in the world. Azura King's eyes narrowed intensely. He immediately sensed that his opponent had become very different, and all the baleful auras that were always within his control had been seized by him. A fight between two on the same path, an archenemy to the bitter death. Feeling that his authority was being robbed from him, Azura King Sing's eyes instantly turned bloodshot as he glared fiercely. Killing intent rose in his heart. Swoosh. Before he took any action, a strong gale came sweeping out with a sharp intent that broke through the air. Before the Azura King could react, he immediately felt a strong pain on his face. 3 bloody scratches had been left on his face from his opponent's sharp claws, with blood flowing down steadily. Chi chi chi. Feng Lin moved at rapid speed, being as fast as a ghost. He kept sending strong gales that were sharp as blades sweeping out. In an instant, Feng Lin created layers of shadows all by himself, trapping Azura King and causing him to be unable to break free. Gasps rang out from the audience watching the battle. Where did he go? Why can't I see anything? He couldn't have suddenly become invisible, right? Dragons come from clouds and tigers from wind. Feng Lin transformed into the white tiger, and instantly spacetime and air currents were all under his control. He became quick as lightning, with strong gales accompanying him. His speed had reached 10 times the speed of sound. It was hard to see him using the naked eye, and they would only be able to capture his movements by using high-technology machines. It was only when they played the holographic display 100 times slower could they saw a vague and blurry figure. This immediately caused a round of gasps to ring out amongst the audience again. Right now, Azura King, who was surrounded by strong gales, was bellowing out furiously. The tiger shadows moved with the wind, being so fast that they left no shadows. No matter how he punched out, he would be over 10 beats slower. On the contrary, his body was restrained and he could only feel that he was surrounded by human figures from all directions. He kept on sustaining blows. The baleful auras from the tiger claws were extremely sharp and he'd get injured upon contact. Not long later, his heavily tempered body was already covered in wounds. Damn it! If you dare, then fight me head-on, the intense pain enraged Singh. His eyes turned so red that it felt as if blood were going to flow out from them. He had long since entered a frenzied state. Suddenly, his body changed and waves of blood-red baleful auras were emitted out. 3 heads and 6 arms. Singh bellowed fiercely toward the sky and many huge flesh mounds bulged up on his back. Blood shot out. 2 small heads and curled arms popped up. They grew rapidly, and very soon, 2 hideous faces that were like that of malicious ghosts appeared. There were also 4 big and thick arms. He was like the Asura from the myths and legends. 3 pairs of bloodshot eyes seethed with violence, glaring all over. The eyes moved around, sending out baleful auras that seethed like dark clouds. The surrounding temperatures plunged to below 0 degrees Celsius. Dark clouds bearing down on the city, threatening to overwhelm it. Facing such strong ferocity, the people who were watching from afar could feel their hearts sink, unable to summon the slightest courage to resist. Chapter 480, Clash Between the Strong. Boom boom boom. The punches were like rolling thunder, creating tremors in the space. Endless amount of baleful auras condensed to form violent waves of clouds that surged over. Like dark clouds that pressed down on a city, they came pressing down from the air, destroying everything in their paths. It caused people's hearts to suffocate and their breathing became more rushed. In the center of these seething dark clouds, a demonic figure slowly revealed his true form, having 3 heads and 6 arms. His 6 huge eyes shot out compelling red light that was like the color of blood. Those who were stared at by his bloody gaze immediately felt as if their hearts were clenched tightly by a pair of invisible hands. They felt so stuffy that it was as if they were going to puke blood. Dong dong dong. Their hearts beat intensely and it felt as if they were going to burst out of their chests. Everyone's faces were flushed and they immediately lowered their heads, not daring to look straight at that godlike figure. White tiger killing formation. Right now, seeing that his opponent had undergone such a terrifying transformation, Feng Lin didn't feel enraged. Instead, he was overjoyed. Things were getting increasingly interesting. He transformed into a white tiger, bringing forth strong gales that were like sharp blades as he moved. His hands kept on attacking his opponent's critical spots with great ferocity, setting up an extremely vicious killing formation. Chi chi chi. The baleful aura was instantly stirred up into a chaotic mess. Looking at that figure that was pressing in rapidly, Asura King raised his 3 faces. Astonishment, anger, hatred. Each of his faces wore different expressions, but they were all equally hideous and terrifying. Die.
Ah.
Kill kill kill. 6 arms Asura. The 3 big and bloody mouths bellowed furiously, sending out shocking sound waves. The 6 arms kept on attacking like raging wind and heavy rain. His destructive killing intent seemed to want to crush everything before him into dust. Dong dong dong. The punches came down like the thunder god beating his drum, causing the entire space to tremble slightly. The fist and air underwent intense friction and sparks splattered. In an instant, countless fist shadows filled up the surroundings. The Asura King stood at his original spot, not taking a single step. With his 3 heads and 6 arms, there were no longer any blind spots around him and no more flaws that could be exploited. Feng Lin had created many clones and trapped him, yet he felt as if he was up against a porcupine. If he were to strike the opponent, he'd also suffer great casualties. He had no means of attacking. Then the only way out was to forcibly fight head-on. Feng Lin no longer tried to look for flaws and just rushed head-on. His claws possessed unrivaled sharpness that created screeching sounds and visible white marks in the air. So what if he had 3 heads? If his claws were to hit his target, then it'd just be 2 additional heads dropping down. Azura King Sing's 6 eyes immediately narrowed into slits, bursting out in blood-red light. He knew that this was a powerful claw attack. 2 of his arms crossed and protected his front, while the remaining 4 arms clenched into fists that were heavy as hammer. He launched out a barrage of fists. The fists and claws collided. Both of their bodies trembled intensely, but there was an additional pair of fists that came smashing over. Feng Lin's heavy body was immediately sent flying out and smashed heavily into the ground. He sank into it, creating a huge crater and bringing forth seething smoke and dust. However, he immediately shot out at lightning speed, unleashing even more ferocious attacks as he pounced forth. A clash between the strong. The white tiger performed killing moves. Fist shadows filled up the place. Both of them turned into a series of afterimages, engaging in an intense fight. The baleful auras seethed and the 2 of them seemed unstoppable. 2 fists were hard to go against 6 hands. Feng Lin kept on being struck, but as he had the stone monkey's indestructible body, it was hard to hurt him even with the fierce punches. After a long battle, Azura King managed to have the advantage. However, he became increasingly violent and impatient, bellowing furiously with the voice of an erupting thunder. Azura world-destroying punch. His 6 arms were raised high, bringing forth seething baleful auras. The baleful auras gathered from all directions, turning into a material form and rapidly extending out like blood-colored oil stains. It dyed his body in red, as if he had put on a layer of blood-colored armor that sent out endless killing intents. At the next instant, all 6 fists took action at the same time. They seemed as if they were far away, but at the next instant, they appeared right before Feng Lin. What? Feng Lin's eyes narrowed and before he could react in time, a pair of massive black shadows had already appeared right before his eyes. He was instantly sent flying out. The fists were faster than sound, heavier than a mountain. This time around, before Feng Lin could regain his standing, Azura King laughed maniacally. With a strong stomp into the ground, he pounced forth, sending his fist shadows and trapping Feng Lin within them. Feng Lin was beaten up to the extent that he couldn't raise his head. Feng Lin's body was like a weak blade of straw, swaying left and right from the attacks. He had completely lost any ability to put up resistance. A commotion broke out. Wow! Is the Spirit Slayer finally going to be defeated before the Azura King? Invincible. Invincible Azura King. Quickly admit your defeat. Lin Feng, you won't be able to win. A loud burst of laughter broke out. Feng Lin put both his arms before him, assuming a defensive stance. Although he kept on being dealt serious blows and his bones were in intense pain as if they were going to be crushed, he had yet to lose his composure. In Hinduism mythology, Azura was an evil god that went up against the king of the gods. He was filled with a strong desire to annihilate the heaven, the earth, and all lives. Right now, as the Azura world-destroying punch was performed, the annihilative killing intent surged. Wherever they passed by, all matter would be crushed. Even the stone monkey body might not be able to withstand such a terrifying prowess. Monkey King Domain. Feng Lin's heart monkey force gushed out, condensing to an extremity and no longer expanded. Instead, it gathered on his skin, also forming a physical armor. The heart monkey force could move all objects and seemed to be able to freeze even space itself. Faint ripples were sent out. These were the traces that space had been distorted into different densities, like water and oil. Wherever the heart monkey force passed by, they would form a domain that made it impossible for the punches to get close. However, Azura King's fists were like a thunderstorm, attacking non-stop. Suddenly, even the spatial barriers were wavering from the attacks. If things carried on like this, the barrier would still collapse. White Tiger 7 stars slaughter. Li managed to find a chance to get a breather and baleful auras entered his body. 7 stars appeared on his back and he sent out multiple vicious claw shadows. Wherever the claw shadows landed, the baleful auras would be like blades that slashed through everything. The white tiger was the god of killing of the West. It rose to prominence from the killing auras in the world, and was an innate divine creature like the heart monkey and Azura. Azura King had 3 heads and 6 arms, while the white tiger had 7 stars in its body. The two of them were like evil gods that had descended onto the world, engaging in an intense fight and sending out killing attacks. There were many white tigers after images, and the Azura King's 6 bloody eyes glared in all directions. He had no blind spots, and he kept on staring at the white tiger's figure. The more he battled, the crazier he became. The more he battled, the more violent he became. Even his eyes were glaring so much that it looked as if blood was going to drip out from it. As the Azura King became increasingly enraged, Lin detected that his fists seemed to have become increasingly heavier. Using fury as the source of strength? Was this the uniqueness of the Azura mythological path? Silver light radiated out from Lin's eyes. As he battled, he analyzed the other party's genetic power, trying to figure out the profoundness behind the Azura mythological path. He managed to learn some things. Genetic potential plus 700, plus 700, plus 700. All these turned into nourishment for Lin's strength. This was using battle to nurture battle.